Good evening. I'm Mike Conklin, and welcome to the Town of Plymouth's somewhat annual Meet the Candidates night. Tonight we have three candidates for a three-year term as a member of the Select Board at the election, which is going to be held on March 9th. The three candidates for this seat are Caroline Downing, John Randlett, and Ted Wisniewski. Joyce Weston is also here to help handle the questions which come in from those of you who are participating. The first order of business is that we will give each of the candidates an opportunity to introduce themselves and perhaps provide a brief bio. I would ask that they each spend no more than 3 minutes on this. Following the introduction, I will ask each of the candidates a few questions that have been provided to me about each candidate's Select Board goals and ambitions. While these questions are being answered, I expect some of you watching will submit questions to be asked to the candidates through what I understand is the chat facility on Zoom here. Joyce Weston is going to look at these largely to avoid duplication, and then we will ask those submitted questions to the candidate or candidates to whom they are directed. Before we get going here, I also want to take a moment to recognize Kathy Kelsey, who I understand saw the need for this and went to the trouble to make it happen. We also have Andrew Fenn of PBTV managing this for us. We are, of course, thankful to both of them. For lack of a better system, I thought we would have our introductions in alphabetical order. And it turns out that whether we go by first names or last names, Carolyn is first, followed by John, and then Ted. So unless I'm missing something, Carolyn, you have the floor, or the screen, I guess.
All right. Thank you, Mike. I appreciate that. I just wanted to come on, and I'm glad that I'm going first because I had submitted my name to run for Select Woman after just years of kind of being more and more interested in local politics and national politics, but also just wanting to be more involved in the town itself. Unfortunately, after I submitted my name, I had a change happen with work and homeschooling, and so I have decided that I'm going to actually step out and not run for Select Woman anymore. And but my name could not come off of the ballot in time, so my name is still on the ballot, but I'm not actually going to continue to run. I have spoken with Ted Wisniewski and really think that he and I had some alignment with like our thought process with as far as being on the Select Board goes, and would love to just see I don't know, things shift and change just a little bit on the Select Board. John, thank you so much for running and being on it for so long. I feel like it's important to kind of have a cycle of community members coming through that in that seat. So that being said, I'm not going to be taking any more questions or staying on the screen. I'll just let John and Ted be the ones answering the questions from here on out.
All right, well, thank you for coming on and letting us know. And of course, that makes my job easier, I guess, because I remember two other names.
Right.
All right, so Carolyn, are you going to, are you just going to go off?
Yeah, I think it just makes the most sense for me to just go off.
Well, it was awfully nice to meet you, and I'll bet you in a few more years you'll be back.
I would not be surprised to see that happen, yep.
All right, well, thanks for thinking about it anyway, and thanks for being here.
Okay, thank you, Mike.
All right, did I say, yeah, sorry, W is right at the end, Ted, so, John?
All right. Again, my name's John Randlett, and I'm running for selectman in Plymouth. I grew up in Houston, Texas. When I graduated from high school, I went into the Air Force. I served 61 to 65. Upon leaving the service, I worked in the accounting field for about 55 years. I have worked in Louisiana, Texas, Colorado, Florida, and New Hampshire. So I have a very familiar background in the accounting area. I did retire from the accounting in 2019. However, I'm still serving my 15th year as treasurer of Haven Pregnancy Services, a nonprofit here in Plymouth. I've been a Plymouth resident for 17 years. My wife Joan has lived in the town for 76 years. Our family, we have 4 children. David Cody, who is veterinarian and runs Plymouth Animal Hospital, and Lori Donahue, who is works for the guidance department at Plymouth High School. Both of them were born and raised here in Plymouth. My oldest son, Johnny Randlett, is a 26-year Navy veteran, retired and working in San Diego, California. And my youngest son, Sean Randlett, is living in Houston and has been working 27 years with the Honeywell Corporation. We have 10 grandchildren and 8 great-grandchildren. My grandfather, Merle Everett Randlett, served in the lower interval grades, and he worked with the Plymouth Fair and back in the 40s and 50s. So my family has been in this area for a very long time. I have served the town of Plymouth since 2005. I started out in the budget committee, and then I served a couple of years on trustee of the trust fund. At that time, I ran for selectman. I lost, but I was picked up to serve an unexpired term on the select board in 2008. I spent 7 years on the planning board, serving in various positions, chairman and vice chair at different times. In the last 6 years, I've served on the select board as chairman and vice chair at different times. And I feel like the job needs to be continued. I feel like I have a few more years to give the town. I enjoy being here in Plymouth. It is my home, and I would just appreciate everybody's vote come March 9th. And thank you.
Thank you, John. And Ted? Ted, are you muted?
I'm unmuted now.
Okay, there we go. Hi, Ted.
Hi, my name is Ted Wisniewski, and I too am running, obviously, for Select Board. I've been a resident of Plymouth for over 30 years now. Originally, I came to Plymouth as a student at Plymouth State College. I met my wife in Plymouth State College, and we loved the area so much that we stayed. We have 2 daughters who both went to the local schools through all their years. And I've been on the budget committee for the last 4 years. And as such, I've grown a much deeper understanding of, what the needs of the town are and, what challenges lay ahead. And I feel that, as that budget committee, it's the next logical step for me to take a role in helping to shape the town that I've come to love so much. I guess that's pretty much my bio. I've spent the last 30 years working at Plymouth State University or Plymouth State College. Recently, that has changed. I am now a full-time employee of UNH as part of a an IT reorganization. It's been a bit of a change, but I still am housed here locally as part of the IT organization at Plymouth State. And I too would really appreciate your vote on March 9th.
Thank you, Ted. All right, so I think that takes care of those. And then I have, as I said earlier, I've been provided with a few questions that were either left over from last time or seemed, well, they were in a box somewhere. So, and they're pretty straightforward and just kind of the sort of thing you might expect to hear. And the first one, which is about as simple as they come, is why do you wish to serve as a selectman? And I guess, why don't we start with John, and you can take your short break, Ted, and then and then we'll get to you with the same question in a couple minutes. So, John?
Right. Why do I want to serve? My whole background, my life has been in service. Like I say, I've spent a lot of time the past 15 years working with the department heads. I have, good open communications with all the department heads and the town employees. Again, people before me have served the town, and I think it's critical for in the select board position for people to serve their community. Again, senior people have done it for years and years, and then we groom, we bring on other people, and it's just a natural thing. Service, I think, is in my heart. I love the town. I love the people. And this is why I want to serve.
All right, thanks, John. And so same question to you, Ted, why?
Well, like I previously mentioned in my bio, I've been on the advisory budget committee for 4 years, and I've had a good opportunity to observe the budget process. And during that time, I've noticed that there are some opportunities to improve process and efficiency. And, in an advisory role, my ability to make changes is somewhat limited. I get to make recommendations, but I don't actually get to decide anything. So I feel as part of the board, I would have a greater ability to advocate for those improvements. And ultimately, those things that I'm interested most in is to, improve efficiency and hold down costs.
All right, great. Should we stick with Ted, reverse the order, and ask the next question, which is just what problems do you think Plymouth needs to confront or deal with, and what do you think should be done to improve the town?
Sure, I can continue. So in the last 4 years, I've noticed that there is an increased pressure on the town specifically to take on some of the things that were formerly handled by the state. And this is, obviously created a pressure on the local taxpayer to address those financial burdens that weren't being covered by the town before. I feel strongly that we need to address the problem where we're, pricing a lot of people out of the town. And so holding down the taxes, finding some creative ways and solutions to control costs through long-term planning are pretty much a major focus for me. What can we do to start improving this? Basically, right now, I've noticed in my advisory role that we don't really have any true metrics to measure how well departments are performing in terms of, how are they doing their jobs? Are they meeting expectations? How do we compare, what we're doing in the town of Plymouth to maybe establish standards elsewhere? So, there's not really a good way of saying how good a job are we doing. are we being as efficient and as cost effective as we can be? You know, and when I asked the question, basically, there's really no way for us to tell. And I think in order to do the best thing for the taxpayers, we must find a way to say to them, because they don't have a lot of visibility into the inner workings of a department. So how do they know? You know, we need to be able to show them, hey, we're being really good with your money. Maybe we are, maybe we're not. We just don't know. So finding a way to, you know, highlight those performance metrics that will tell people, yeah, we processed 5,000 tons of trash at the recycling facility, and it cost us this much per ton, and that's well in advance of maybe some other towns. So we're doing well. We have some metric to show. Something else I learned recently is that apparently there is no performance reviews for employees in the town. I found that a little surprising, that we have people working and they don't really get the formal feedback on how they're doing at their job. I think that's something that, you know, we need to address at the Board of Selectmen level.
All right, thank you, Ted. And John?
Okay. Probably, as Ted said, one of the biggest issues is our taxes. And we have a revenue problem, not a spending problem. There's some legislation in process now to increase the state sharing to percentage levels. I think in 2017, we were looking at almost $800,000 less in revenue in the town than we had in 2008. And as Ted said, it's a lot of items that the state was either fully funding or funding to a larger level, and now they're turning it all back to the towns. And the state ends up, oh, we've got an increase in revenue, and they've got an increase in revenue because they're not expending these items that they pass on to the town. One of the other issues unique to us is we have about 55% of the town is non-taxable. The taxable property is non-taxable, 55% of the town. And we're losing revenue over the past 5 years. We've lost almost 300,000 in taxable property that went nonprofit. To make up $300,000 a year is quite a feat, and we've done some of that through new businesses that we brought in, but we're still having issues. We had some issues with the co-op on valuation of taxable property. That was about $85,000 a year that we lost in our current revenue, and because the lawsuit had been out there, we had to back pay 4 years. So that cost us almost $500,000 in tax revenue. So we need to look at capping the 501c3s. Plymouth is a hub town. A lot of these entities went nonprofit due to services they provide that they don't get paid for. But those people come from Hebron, Alexandria, Ashland, Campton, Thornton, all different towns, and the taxpayers in Plymouth are the ones that are paying the cost. So it's something we need to look at. We need to, we've got something we're looking at right now out at the airport for some businesses coming in, but we also have a economic committee that we're trying to get new business in. One of the other things, problems we have is infrastructure needs, and the select board is working with the water district board to consolidate that work and get some of these, some of our drainage and runoff sewers brought up to current day standards. Some of them are over 100 years old, so they are failing. So this we've got a good handle on. We've got, we brought in a full-time town planner. We're doing a lot of grant work to get a lot of this done at 80% grant funding. And these are the things we're working on, and we will see these changes taking place in the next couple of years.
All right, John, thank you. And then I have the next one I've heard before, and that is, do you guys feel that the select board is able to communicate effectively with the residents of the town? And do you have any, well, I guess if not, do you have any ideas about how that could be improved? And I guess, yeah, John, do you want
All right, I
to
will
continue?
I will go first. Yeah, I feel we communicate well with town residents. I think it can always be better. You know, one thing I've noticed when I started planning board 15, 16 years ago, I mean, we would have 15, 20 people at our planning board meetings, and now more and more, 2, 3, 4. So I think the community, it's the same thing with the select board meetings. We have one general public individual that attends all our meetings. And these meetings, except for COVID times, are open to the public. And it's a time for, you know, people to get involved, understand what's going on. We publish stuff on the town network. You know, it's, we have some stuff in the paper. But overall, I think the communication is well. It's, I know I have a lot of people. One of my thoughts are better attendance to budget hearings. I mean, we used to have 10, 15, 20 people at those, and now we're ending up with 3 or 4 people at a budget hearing. We have 2 of these every year, and we go through the budget line item by line item. And to just have 3, 4, 5 people, and the same people every year, it, you know, I mean, they ask a lot of questions in Walmart and Hannaford's, and we're more than glad to share. But I think communication is a double-edged sword, and I think there's a lot of opportunities for citizens in the town, just like Ted serving on the budget committee, to come in, understand, like he says, over 4 years working the budget, I understand more about the town. I see some of the needs. And without that interface and people getting involved in the various committees we have as alternates or regular members, it's hard to communicate a lot of the little stuff. And of course, we do have the Zoom meetings, and you see everything that goes on. So I think we have some good communication channels, and you know, possibly I think one of the ones where we might have had a little shortfall due to COVID, it's the first time we've had to deal with it, is the virtual town meeting versus like some towns have done and postponed their meeting for better weather when people could get together and possibly work it, you know, in person town meeting. But I think other than that, I think we've done a good job communicating to the public.
All right, thank you, John. And Ted, same question. How's the communication, do you think, between the select board and the town residents?
Well, from my perspective, I think over the last couple of couple of years, that has improved a lot. The town meetings are published on the website and in YouTube. So if you want to go and look at them after the fact, it's pretty easy to do. But there's always room for improvement. And, you know, we're living in a different age now where it's more difficult for families to necessarily be actively searching for the information that they want. And I think that, you know, one thing that we can do to improve our reach into the town residents is to expand our use of social media platforms that a lot of our residents already use. You know, things like Facebook, things like Twitter, Instagram. They're using these tools, and these tools don't necessarily make you go out and look for the information. They give you a methodology of finding the information so that it's fed to you. And I think if we're trying to reach a lot of the current residents with busy lives, waiting for them to go to the town website may not be enough to make sure they're engaged in what's going on. So if we can find a methodology that gives them basically a stream of that information so that they see it pop up on their smartphone or in their, you know, social media feeds, so that they don't have to go look. Like even this candidates forum, where we don't have a huge number of attendees from the community. It's fairly limited when you consider the size of the community, and we have 10 attendees. That's not huge. So how was this meeting publicized? It was probably in the paper, but, you know, demographics have shown that, you know, not as many people are reading the paper. And if you don't go to the town website on a regular basis, you might not even realize that it's happening. So, you know, there's definitely room for improvement. I'm not saying anybody's done anything wrong, but we need to change with the times to allow people to find out about it. But I think we have people out there that are interested in what's going on, and they're busy, so they don't think about actively seeking that data. We need to find a way to provide it to them in a methodology that will be easier for them to consume.
All right. Hey, thank you very much, Ted. And then I have our perennial question, which comes in a variety of forms, but is always there. And that is concerning the relationship between PSU and the town, which is always somewhat challenging. How would you approach forging a healthy relationship between PSU, which of course is our largest employer now, and the town? And I guess, yeah, Ted, you want to take it first?
Sure. Well, as I mentioned earlier, you know, I was a student there. I was an employee for 30 years. I know a lot of the people. I know their concerns at the college level. It's definitely complex. There's no easy answers to the challenges between the college and the town. But, you know, in the end, both the college and the town depend on each other. And so the biggest thing we can do is make sure that we keep those aisles of communications open. We listen to what's being said. And we try not to come up with conclusions before each party is basically made its case. You know, the problem that we could run into is that if somebody has a more confrontational approach, we need to lose. You know, the college has been here probably almost half the life of the town in some way, shape, or form. And let's face it, it's a tremendous economic benefit to the town, especially when the students are here going and patronizing local downtown businesses. You know, a lot of those businesses depend on the resources that not just the students bring in, but, you know, we have employees that work on campus, and where do they go for lunch? They go to Biedermann's or or Thai Smile or some other local restaurant. And, that's really huge to those businesses. And yeah, there is always the issue of parking, which, we have a full-time parking group now, and they take care of the parking, and it does bring in revenue to the parking budget. But yeah, it's always going to be complex. But, I'm a resident of the town of Plymouth, and my interest is making sure that we can get the most out of our relationship with Plymouth State University, and they rely on us too. They drive on our roads. They can't get to Plymouth State without our roads, and so we're really a showcase for what Plymouth State University presents to its students. If Plymouth State doesn't have any students, what is the impact on the town of Plymouth? I mean, that's something that we all need to think about.
All right. Thank you, Ted. John, you're familiar with that issue.
Oh, yes.
What do you think?
Well, having worked over my time with 3 different administrations at the university, I think open communications every other week at the select board meeting, we have Marlon or Don Bricks bringing us up to date on the university, what the plans are. And as Ted says, it's a matter of, we share the same community and we just need to work together. We all have needs. To the town, our priorities, are number one, and to the university, it's the same way. And I think we've come a long way in communications. We keep it open. People that are honest share the information, and we do the best for each one of us. We just finished a negotiation on a life safety service agreement, and I think that went well. It was. I think we got everything done in a matter of 4.5 or 5 hours over a couple of meetings, and it's good. And we just need to keep the communications open and share our needs and their needs, and work together to get it done.
All right. Thank you, John. I'm going to take a little moderator's privilege here before we get to the other questions, and that involves a conversation I had with Kathy Kelsey the other day. We were talking about the mask thing, and I think what we were wondering about is, I think this was just after Texas and Mississippi announced that they were going to go pretty much maskless, or at least they weren't going to have the requirement of masking and distancing and so on, and having restrictions on businesses. And this is something that's going to be coming up here, I imagine, at some point before too long, as it is in all places, as more and more people get vaccinated and as the risk hopefully begins to abate. And so I'm wondering, how do you guys feel about our current mask requirement, and for how long? Do you have an idea how long it should be in effect, or whether it should be in effect at all? And since John's picture has appeared on the screen larger than life, let's start with John.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Yes, I was, up until we put the mask ordinance in, I think the town and the area was doing very, very well. I was probably the lone vote against the mask ordinance. Myself personally, if a business requests a mask, then in order to do business, we wear a mask. And we were doing this, and we weren't seeing a lot of increases. And where we have 300-400 people from New York, Mass, and different areas coming into our town, we were not having very many cases. But with the college coming back, it was one of those situations that, again, the town and the university got together. Again, I did not vote for it. I did not think it was totally necessary. I think the town and people using good judgment did a very good job up to that point. It looks like we will probably be in the mask business probably through the end of March, I would think. I haven't heard anything to the different, but you know, it's I think it has helped. But I also think even when the masks go away, I mean, there's going to be instances where in good conscience, we should wear them. And I wear them when I go into businesses. And, but, you know, as far as, you know, different meeting situations, I think people used a lot of good judgment. You know, if somebody in the group is not feeling well, they don't show up to interface with the group. And so I think the town has done well, and I think we will continue to. And you know, at some point, probably the first part of middle of April, it may be done here. So,
All right, thank you, John. Ted, do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, I mean, John covered it pretty well. I mean, we're going to be in it for a while. At least, like you said, until the end of March. I would guess probably at least till the beginning of May, when the weather turns better, and when, if what they say on the news is true, we'll almost all be vaccinated. And at that point in time, maybe things can relax. Again, we're going to have to, you know, look to our elected officials in state and local government, as far as and listening to the CDC and other authoritative bodies to get good guidance on when it's okay. But we will come out of this. We will be able to go back to a sense of normalcy in the not too distant future. I will say, personally speaking, I would be very happy if COVID was done and over with. I'm a little tired of being at home. But yes, I think we'll listen to, you know, the guidance we're getting from, you know, the government agencies that study this and make sure that we don't do it too soon.
All right, great, thank you. Now, I wasn't exactly clear on how this is supposed to work, but Joyce, do we have questions from our invisible participants here?
Thank you, Mike. We got two very good questions in the Q&A box. One of them was about the issues that the town faces, and I think that's been pretty well answered. But another question is specific, and it reads, do you agree with the Board of Selectmen decision to cancel the in-person open debate format of our town meeting this year, a tradition that's been ongoing in Plymouth since our founding in 1763?
All right, that's a good question. Can everybody still hear me? Something's gone funny on my screen.
I can hear you.
I can hear you fine,
All
Mike.
right. So maybe John, or let's, who went last? Ted, how about John? Do you want to take that?
sure. Well, I was opposed to going to the virtual town meeting. I thought that we should, as a board, we should have waited until we got some good weather. I mean, right now we're going to have the virtual meetings and we're going to have the vote on April 17th. We don't know what April 17th weather is going to look like. One of my suggestions was that we have social distancing in the elementary school gym. We have the people present, and if we require additional room, get people to VIP, see who's going to be there, and use the high school auditorium. Put in a big TV set it up where everybody can hear. And so again, I voted against doing it that way, and it was 4-1 vote, and you know, we majority rules, but I thought it was. I mean, I have not missed one town meeting since I've moved into the town, and I think it's an opportunity for people one-on-one to get together and share questions and question things that maybe they didn't think about at the budget hearing or some of the other meetings. You know, it's I still think you know the way to go is to wait. I mean, we have to do something before June 30th for budget reasons and everything else getting this approved. But I think we should have, and several other towns have done this, is, you know, postponed it to May. And that was the way I felt about the whole thing.
All right. Thank you, John. And Ted?
As far as the canceling in person, you know, that's a kind of a two-edged sword. I mean, I understand the perspective of it's an opportunity for people to get together, but if we have to limit attendance to maintain all the social distancing requirements that we have in place now, you know, who are we going to leave? Who are we going to leave out? You know, and so at least by having it virtually, I think we open up the opportunity for far more people to actually participate safely than we might have had if everybody was given the VIP pass to the room. And if you have an overflow location like the high school, you got the same problem. People are essentially on Zoom, essentially in another building where they're with other people. I mean, I'm not really sure we're solving a problem there. Could we have waited till May? Perhaps. But, you know, given the information that was probably available at the time the decision was made, no one really knew if it would be truly safe to have large gatherings in May. And so, you know, what do? You make no decision, or do you make a decision based on the information you have in hand? And I think, honestly, you know, people had to make a decision based on keeping people safe. You know, me personally, I would not want to have an in-person event like that without knowing all the information, and then have someone get sick, someone die, and feeling guilty about it, that, oh, maybe we shouldn't have had that. So I would opt to, I agree with the decision. It's the best one for the choice this year. Next year, it'll be very different, I hope. And we'll return to normal.
Great, thank you.
I have two other
Yes.
questions that have come up just now. John, did John want to follow up on that?
Yes, I would. One thing I would like to say is that on the average, somebody has, and I don't know where it came from, somebody was saying, well, we have 400 or 500 people at the town meeting. On the average, we're looking at less than 100 people at our town meetings. Some of them we've had 81, we've had 99, we've had 105, but generally on the average, it's less than 100 people. And, you know, I just, again, you know, felt like we should have taken some time to possibly look at other ways to do it.
Hey, John, sorry if I didn't see you waving your hand there. I guess Joyce was paying more attention than I was.
Yeah, well, no problem, Mike.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, Joyce?
Okay, I have two other questions. One is, do you think political affiliation and ideology have any bearings as a member of the select board? Why and why not?
Well, that's a good one. All right, who wants to tackle that first?
I'll happily go.
All right, Ted wins.
All right. Well, political affiliation and ideology. I mean, in this case, you know, I looked at the ballot. I didn't see whether someone was a D or an R or an I. I don't really think it matters. I mean, what really truly matters in this case is, do we have people running for select board that are interested in doing the best job for the town? Party affiliation shouldn't come into play. Personal ideology, can you separate what you feel personally for what's best for the town? And if the case is that you can take your personal feelings about something and do the right thing for the town, I don't think that matters either.
All right, thank you. John?
I think on the select board, it has no place. It happens, we see it, but you know, I think as representatives of the people, we need to represent everybody fairly. And if there's someone that disagrees, just like with the town meeting situation, it was 4-1, a majority. I don't think it was political. Everybody put all the information they had together and made a decision. And, you know, the majority wins. But, you know, we're here to represent all the people. You know, set my personal feelings aside. It's what's best for the town. And I think the individuals and the selectmen should stay neutral. I mean, if we have other situations, who we're going to vote for, that fine. That can be a party situation. But when it comes to the administration of the town, there's no place for that. And I know, Mike, you've served, and Patrice and Butch and them, and we don't always agree, but at the end of the day, we can shake hands. We can feel we did right for the town, and go our way.
Wonderful. Thank you, John. So, Joyce, did I hear you say you have another one?
There's one more question. Thank you. The last question is, do you think zoning enforcement in Plymouth is too strict, about right, or too lax?
All right. Whose turn is it? I guess it's John's turn first this time.
Can I pass? No, I think, you know, again, it's one of those opinion situations. And I think zoning I think we're 95% there. And again, different people, you know, have different interests. And again, we should just look. We should listen when things come up. We recently had the agricultural zoning. We had some warrant articles that were pulled because we were not in a situation where we could have people in a meeting and fully discuss the ramifications of the changes that were being proposed. And so again, cool heads prevailed. They pulled those warrant articles till next year, when in between that time we can all meet, we can all share, we can all understand. I don't think any of us have all the answers. And again, it's participation. If you feel strong enough about something, you get out there and you work for it, and you inform people. There's a lot of things, you know, I'm a city boy, and, you know, I love the country, rural part, and I have a lot to learn. So listen to the people, number one, that it directly involves, and see why they differ. But you know, like I say, I feel we're 95% there.
All right, John, thank you. And Ted, what about zoning?
Well, I will self-admit that I don't have that much experience with zoning specifically. So in that regard, I can't say whether it's too strict about right or too lax, but I'm gonna have to assume that zoning rules are there for a reason. And if somebody is looking for an exception, that it should be justified and fully vetted by the town. And I'm hoping, or I'm praying that the right decision is made in a case where a valid exception is necessary.
All right. Thank you very much. So where are we, Joyce? Are we?
That's all I have. The other question was about pressing issues of the town, and I think we covered that pretty well in the discussion.
I think there's one other question.
What is that, Ted?
Jesse Jennings.
Oh, I asked that about a political affiliation and ideology.
No, it's further down. Candidate.
Ooh, you know what? Thank you. I missed this. Should a candidate have some understanding of municipal rules and budgeting before he or she even casts their name for election? Thank you for bringing that to my attention.
Yeah, well, I don't see that either. So
It came on at 1 minute ago.
okay. So the question is, say it again, and I'm sorry.
Okay, I will repeat the question. Should a candidate have some understanding of municipal rules and budgeting before he or she even casts their name for election?
So rules and budgeting, I guess, I don't know if those are two separate things, but I guess they could be. Why don't we start with Ted on that? Should you have some knowledge of municipal rules and budgeting before throwing your hat in the ring?
Well, as I understand it, municipal rules are a little different than most, and that is understood. I think specifically to municipal, how would you expect people to gain that understanding? The only way that I know that people could gain that understanding is to serve on something like the budget committee, very much like John did and I have. So some familiarity, yes. As in with many jobs, some of the things you're going to have to learn as you go. I'm sure that a lot of people have run for select board that had no understanding at all. And what did they do? They learned. And I think that's a necessary part of growth and making sure that people understand what is going on. They get to ask the questions. Why are we doing this? Is it a good idea? And I think it's a good exercise to have those questions asked and making sure that the people who know, I'm assuming Ann and Kathy would be the people that they would ask the questions of, explain it in a way that makes sense to the person in question.
All right. Mr. Randlett?
Yes, I feel people should be involved. Planning board, attending meetings, volunteer for various committees in the town. Once somebody is elected, then there is training available. There are books, things come up, that you might have been on the select board for 6 years and all of a sudden a question comes up and you go, well, I don't know. And we look and lo and behold, here's the RSA that covers it, the individual bringing it up, and we weren't aware of it. Nobody knows everything. And these RSAs can change and situations change. So, number one, you just have to be there to serve, to answer people. When people, I get calls here at the house. I have people when I'm out shopping, when I'm out walking, and run into me. Hey, how about this from the last meeting? And I think, I think, like Ted says, it's something you learn. You have the desire to learn. The Municipal Association has training classes every year for budgeting, for the selectman's job. What is your authority? And So, I think people need to be involved, and just like Ted has on the budget committee, you need to be involved before you take over the select board. But even when you become a select board member, there's a learning process. Probably a year and a half. You're learning the procedures. You're learning a lot of the RSAs. So it's a OJT job, and I think Mike can attest to that. Y'all have.
Not sure I ever did become fully trained.
No, we
All
never.
right, so now, Joyce,
I think that's all, Mike. I think we've answered the questions.
did the either of the candidates wish to say anything before we close out, maybe in closing or a summary, or are you good?
Well, I would just like to say, I would appreciate your vote. I would like to continue my tenure as selectman and serve the town of Plymouth. And I would appreciate their vote on March 9th.
Ted?
Absolutely. Yes, I would appreciate your vote on March 9th as well. No disrespect to John, but I hope you don't win. But thank you everyone for listening to this. This was a very good meeting and forum.
Yeah, and before we, thank you, Ted. Before we log off, I just wanted to thank, Joyce Weston again for helping out here, and Kathy Kelsey for pushing in the first place, and of course, Andrew, who's sort of behind the scenes but running the show for us. Thank you, Andrew, too. And our candidates and all the people who listened in. I hope we do this live next year. And we can say live on PBTV. Is that what? It's candidates night. So until next year, thank you all very much. And don't forget to vote.